Welcome to Vermont State University These Things Matter podcast with Mary and Aurora from Multilingual Student Support and the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Social Justice Offices. In today's episode, we have a thought-provoking discussion lined up about call-in and call-out. What do these terms mean and how they can be used as methods of addressing discrimination in student and student-faculty situation? To explore this important topic, let's explore the definition first. Could you please explain what call-in means in the context of addressing discrimination on campus, especially in student situations?
Definitely. And I will start this conversation by saying it is kind of a tricky and complicated subject. So there are very specific things about calling in that are different from calling out. So a call-in is usually from one-on-one conversations or small groups. And it's to engage in a private conversation when we kind of observe our friends saying harmful words, behaviors, or things that we know are discrimination. It's a way to address these issues constructively and really thinking about educating your friends and not making them feel publicly shamed, especially when you have that close relationship. So think about this as an example. A friend of yours makes a joke that you know is homophobic. Instead of laughing, you ask them, "What was your intention when you said that?" This then can open up a conversation to allow your friend to reflect on what they said and why it is harmful. The goal is to focus on learning from a mistake, to say to them, "Don't you think it is a stereotype and is harmful?"
So, in your example, the person is a bypasser, kind of. How about if the person is is the victim of discriminations?
Yeah, I'll give another example for this. So a friend makes a joke about some details, say, related to your race or immigration status. In this situation, you might ask, "Why do you think that? Do you believe that to be true?" The answer is often your friend didn't know what they said was offensive or hurtful, and if they are a true friend, they'll listen to you and not make the same mistake again.
That sounds very helpful, Aurora. What happens when the person who made the harmful joke or comments is not a friend, like just a stranger? Or what if your friend makes the same type of comment again?
Yeah, that's a really good question and can be kind of tricky. It depends on how you're feeling. So what's your feeling of safety and comfort, especially when it is your own identity that is being targeted? If you do feel safe, it is the same steps that we just kind of went over. But if you don't feel safe, a big thing to know is that you're not alone in doing this work and that you should not have to be in an uncomfortable or harmful situation. If things come up and you need support, you can always reach out to my office, the Office of DEISJ at this email, which is diversity@vermontstate.edu. Any colleagues and I are really here to help walk through those issues and decide what is the best course of action and who might also be able to help support you if there are other staff and other departments that can kind of lend a hand.
That is so helpful to know. I guess many students can relate to that method when they are in critical situations that require them to question the motive of the person. But I feel like it is a method suitable for those who could be self-critical and reflective, because in some situations we need a stronger reactions. I heard of them call the term call out throughout some articles that we read. But can you explain to what call out means in higher education context? How can this method be used effectively while maintaining a respectful learning environment? And also the relationship, between student and faculties who have different power balance in a classroom.
Definitely. And the power dynamics are big. So a call out involves really bringing public attention to the harmful words of behaviors. So different from that one-on-one or small group context. You are naming a harm in the moment with calling out. In a student faculty context, it is crucial to strike that balance between raising that awareness and preserving that respectful atmosphere that's important to a learning environment. So it may involve addressing issues, say in class discussions, or could be said by a fellow student or by the faculty member.
How can someone navigate the discomfort of calling out, though? Because it seems like it's a kind of serious tone of voice that you are using here.
Just going to be a little harder and more uncomfortable than calling in. But what's important about it is that the goal is to start harm in the moment and break its momentum so harm doesn't kind of pile up. So let me give kind of an example to picture what that's like. So during a class discussion, someone shared a stereotype about immigrants, as if that stereotype were a fact. You can say something like, "It sounds like you're making some assumptions that we need to unpack." That fits in a class discussion. It calls out that what was said was harmful in the moment, and it opens that door for more dialogue. It is especially important, I want to note, to call out if you're not the target of harm. So this is thinking about how you can support your fellow students when things come up. It kind of allows you to stand up for the people who are being targeted and let those people know that they have an ally, as well as stopping that harm from happening to them in that moment. It's a really powerful thing to not just be an ally, but someone who makes that change. So thinking about it as a change-making exercise. And if you want some more examples of kind of what to say in a call-out situation or a call-in situation, because sometimes it's just helpful to have some specific lines like we just shared, there are more at the DEI SJ resources page, which you can find in the student portal. I think one final thing to say with this, I want to make sure folks know, is remember to take care of yourself, especially if you're the target of the harm. If you're unable or unsafe to address that harm, that's completely understandable. I don't want folks to feel like they have to take on something when they feel unsafe. You should try and find allies that you're able to help you navigate that situation.
Let's talk about making practical decisions. I think both methods that you just told me have their merits and things to consider. Let's say, how can I know, in a situation, if I should call in or call out?
I think one tip that I would start with is in which one you're going to choose is what's your relationship with that person, as well as, again, going back to your feeling of safety in that situation. A call-in, it really allows for personalized conversations, which can lead to greater understanding and change, really with like a friend and an individual. It's an opportunity to educate and allow growth within our close relationships. The choice between call in and call out depends also on the severity of the issues and that potential impact. If that behavior is causing immediate harm, say the example in the classroom, it needs to be stopped immediately, so a call out might be necessary. However, for less severe situations, or again, when you have that more personal or a professional relationship, calling in is often more appropriate. The goal in either case is for education and dialogue.
That's a very good tips in order to make decision, Aurora. Another thing I like about this method is that they help us to be a more responsible, civilized, and civic-minded person, right?
Definitely. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because things to consider when you're calling in or calling out is your own positionality. And what I really mean by that is going with Are you an ally stepping up when you see harm happening to a group that you're not a part of? To truly be inclusive, we need everyone to stand up. It's unfair to leave the work just to the people who are most effective. And I'll give an example of some trainings that I've done at the university with faculty and staff. One is teaching white staff how to be anti-racist and support their students and colleagues who are BIPOC. Another training has been teaching cisgender employees how they can support their transgender colleagues and students. It is important to take care of each other. And also, I think I want to say that for folks who are part of some historically marginalized communities, we need to stand up for each other too. Solidarity is key to strengthening the needed change, as much as it's also important for those who might have identities that intersect in different ways.
When you mentioned about historically marginalized communities, yeah, I think that's a very important that they need more and more support. And I also think of the minorities such as my international student as well. So yeah, language and co-in and co-out, using the language that makes us think about language plays an important role that affects the way people think. And language could be weaponized as well. Because speaking of safety, that made me think about the importance of verbal threatening, where language is used more like as a weapon or a tool for suppressions. So verbal abuse or violent loaded words, loaded terms, those are kind of words and phrases that carry emotional trigger, emotional meaning. And they are often used in order to impose our opinion or like threaten on towards a group of people or a topic or a subject. This emotional response can be negative emotion, and it can be very difficult to resist, given the fact that there's a lot of news going on right now. So calling out such loaded language or loaded discussion could be a way to take a step back and think about what they really, really mean and how it affects the audience or the information receivers. For example, when a student jokes about, ravaging a place or, mentioning a method of a weapon that they're going to bring to campus, or, they're going to destroy something. So how should we react to those kind of language use with co-in and co-out?
I really appreciate you bringing this up, and it's definitely kind of a tricky question. There are just, some jokes that are not funny, and you can confront your friends if they say them. But if you feel, again, worried and unsafe at all, you should report that you heard this, or at least find someone else to talk to about it, especially another university staff member. They can kind of help you navigate, is this a joke or is it dangerous? Really, when thinking about calling in and calling out, they're more conversational, they are learning opportunities, especially around bias and assumptions. When it's something that gets more threatening, like the examples that you used around physical violence or an argument that is just kind of hostile, and there really isn't any room for learning, that is when you should get yourself out of that unsafe situation and ask for help. As we kind of talked about before, calling out can create tension, but there should still be that place of learning. Violence and feeling unsafe does not lead to any ability to learn. So again, take care of yourselves.
Yes, taking care of yourself when you make a decision. That's so good to know. Finally, let's talk about if someone called you in or out. So we are the person being called. Do we need to feel shocked and embarrassed when that happens to us?
That is another really good question. So think about it as collaboration is key. Students and faculty should be actively engaging in dialogue and workshops and training sessions that focus on inclusion. We can learn from each other's experiences and perspectives, and this will lead to a more inclusive campus. If someone calls you in or out, the most important thing to do is listen. To be able to listen, though, you might need to first take a little step back, to take some time to ground yourself and remind yourself that being called in or call out isn't an attack. It's actually, in a lot of ways, someone trying to be kind and teach you something. You're still, right? You're still a good person, even if you feel shocked or embarrassed. You just might have made a mistake with something you said. So once you listen, you should acknowledge what you were told and apologize if appropriate.
Apologize? Well, I know that in some culture that the language that they use gonna be a little bit different, and maybe it's very hard in order in a hierarchical society that to make the apologize if you are senior or higher in that kind of social construct to apologize. But in the United States, let's say in American higher education context, what do you think about the act of apology? What is the role of it?
So in higher education, we are here to learn ultimately. Everyone will make mistakes. And the importance is not to let kind of that discomfort at the mistakes we made prevent us from learning. The best apology is changed behavior. So by being accountable to each other, we'll be able to build that more inclusive culture and be able to have these important conversations.
Well, that's so good to know. Thank you so much again for joining us. And thanks, Aurora, for sharing your insights on the call in and call out methods. I'm always learning. So I do appreciate this method when addressing discrimination on campus. We hope this discussion has shed light on effective ways to promote inclusivity at Vermont State University, especially in times of division and conflicts. And to our listeners, regardless of your linguistics and cultural background, this call-in and call-out represents an attempt in the American culture to foster inclusions and to share responsibilities. If English is your second language, you can find some sentence stems and prompters on the EISJ website. Let's continue these important conversations and work together to make our campus more inclusive and welcoming for all.
Yeah. And thank you too, Mary, for your really great questions. It can be tricky to dive into this. And that's really it for today's episode of These Things Matter. If you have any questions or ideas for topics that you'd like to see in future episodes, please reach out to us. You can reach out again to the email that's diversity@vermontstate.edu. Until next time, stay inclusive and keep the dialogue going. Remember, you can always reach out to this office if you need, and we're here to support you and make VTSU a safe and inclusive place for everyone.